check. Mic check, 1, 2, 3, mic check, 1, 2, 3, mic check. 'Twas brillig and the slightly toes, gimble in the robe. Our mimsy with a Virgo and the moon wraths out grabe. Is that good? Is that good or you want some more? You're good?
Yeah, give us another verse.
stuff, but Robbie was a pioneer. He perfected techniques like wearing white athletic socks underneath his black dress socks. He had the jeans on underneath his slacks, and he came up with the craziest t-shirts to wear under his dress shirts. So as soon as we would be at church, we would transition out of the service and into Sunday school. Rob would dart off, disappear somewhere like Clark Kent going into a phone booth. And then he'd come strutting back out like his superpower was his uber casual look. It wasn't too much later that my parents actually threw in the towel on church. So nice job, Robert. So when we suddenly found ourselves in the position of planning this memorial, there was no tradition to follow, there was no go-to spiritual leader. What you see today is simply what has been determined to pass the Rob test. It was just over 9 years ago on a Saturday that I dressed in black and stood in front of many of you to marry Rob and Amy. Today, it is seersucker, just Rob style, and my grandfather, Robert's bow tie that you see us sporting in tribute as we gather to grieve, to remember, to celebrate, and off to our brother, Robert Nathaniel Soper. We're starting the program today with reflections on loss, so I'm going to go ahead and dive in and rip off the Band-Aid. COVID time has been very tough on all of us, but it was utterly brutal for Rob, the consummate extrovert who, with great reluctance, was coming to terms with the end of his marriage and pouring every last ounce of energy into keeping his eyes on the horizon. But you know Rob, he just kept plugging. He spent his days grinding away at getting Mesh Suture, the medical device startup that he was invested in, ready to hit the market and to hit it big. To keep his spirits up, he'd disappear into his wood shop for hours at a time and emerge with these spectacular candelabras, dining table centerpieces, pen holders, cribbage boards. You name it, Rob could make it. When Rob's 6-year-old son, Knox, wasn't in school, the two of them would hit the pool to practice their water polo egg beater or head to the dock for some fishing. Rob also became the resident handyman for little brother Chris, as he and Julie settled into their new home right in the same neighborhood. I know that time was bittersweet for Rob because just a few months ago, he and Amy had agreed on plans to move back to St. Louis separately. While we West Coasters were really going to miss Rob, though, we knew Rob was coming home here to a house of his own, a new life among old friends, and a bright future in his business. He'd find a space for his new woodworking studio, and when Mesh Suture did hit it big, he'd buy his own farm. Some plot of land 45 minutes out of the city, just like the ones that he had spent his childhood trampling across. He could start all over. Rob was so close. But just a day after he and Amy sat down with Knox to share their plans, an accident cut those plans short. It is a cold, shocking truth to try to come to peace with. But it's also true that Rob's struggle is over. He's moved on to a more peaceful place, a more peaceful state. In fact, I know he has, and I'll come back to that. But I want to turn now to what we here have lost. What Rob's passing means for us in this moment and as our lives continue forward. I want to read a few bits from some of the letters that many of you shared after learning the news. Rob had a really special talent. He could light up a room with a smile, an undeniable, welcoming presence. Rob was willing to do anything for his friends, so I can't even imagine his loyalty and steadfast love for those he held most dear. To know Rob was to know what unbridled and absolute joy and love felt like in any given moment. Yet to truly know him, you had to peel back the layers, and he certainly was not selfish with his insights, bearing his soul, and making you a better person. Rob's spirit, positivity, and love for all people and life in general was unlike any other. And the last one, Rob was a center of gravity for so many of us, providing light and energy with his mere presence. And it's that last one I love especially because it so accurately describes the ability that Rob had with everyone to not only bring people together, but to make each individual feel seen, appreciated, and nourished. For me personally, I lost my little big brother. Rob was always looking out for all of us, always taking the lead, always thinking about the best outcome for everyone around him, always troubleshooting, always devising the best solution or building the sleekest, most effective thing needed for the task at hand. No matter what doubts dwelled under the surface, Rob never hesitated to dive in first, to go for it, whether it was getting married, becoming a father, taking up beekeeping, smoking meats, heading down to the corner store on his one wheel. Rob always figured out how to do things right, and he would drop anything to show you, to share it with you, to do it for you, because he always wanted to share, because he loved you. He could be ferocious with that love, especially when it came to family. Once when I was a second semester senior in high school, I was at a party. Some of you may remember this, where I landed in the crosshairs of a very angry, very aggressive, and very large football player in my graduating class. It was not a good situation for me. I basically wound up fleeing the party in terror after the guy had bashed in the roof of my Mazda with his Donkey Kong fist. I get home, I have a full-on panic attack, meltdown. I'm sobbing to Mom, trying to explain what had happened. And I see Rob there listening, dead stone. He was 14, I think, right around then, right at the beginning of puberty. So he was still a scrawny kid whose chin had suddenly outgrown the rest of his face. Remember that gleam of rage in his eyes. And as soon as I got the words out that I was afraid this crazy football guy was going to come after me to show up at our house, Rob vanishes. Turns out, Rob went straight to his closet for his paintball gun, dumped out the paintballs, replaced them with marbles, and goes running out into the front yard and goes into stakeout mode, and proceeded to hide in the bushes for something like 3 hours, waiting for this guy to show up. Fortunately for everyone, this guy never did show up. But on the other side of Rob's love, opposite that ferocity, was a bottomless well of tenderness. Some of my fondest memories of an entire lifetime with Rob have been in the past few years, when he became a dad to Knox and Uncle Bob to my kids. Tossing little bodies around the swimming pool, grilling up a feast of meats and fresh veggies from his garden, as the little people were squealing around us, playing zone defense out at the beach when it was just the two of us and we had the 3 kids going every which direction. The way that he would scoop up my daughter Francine, sort of poking at her with his pet name for her, Francolita, and all the while just enveloping her in his big arms with this unmistakable affection, this love that was just absolute. Every time I witnessed it, I thought I was going to melt. It is devastating to think of Rob missing the birth of Chris and Julie's son next month. That it's going to be 2 instead of the 3 of us brothers raising our kids together to be the next generation of our family. Ever since 4-3-2-1, the day that Rob took off, I've replayed that scene from Back to the Future where Marty watches his siblings disappearing from the picture he carries around in his pocket. For us, it's Rob's disappearance from all the photos we take when we gather every day forward, starting with this one. This is our loss. This is our pain. It's our truth. We are here now, and we live in a culture that really doesn't make a lot of space for grief and for accepting pain. In fact, we spend most of our lives trying to avoid it. But we're all here now. We can lean upon each other. We can share this pain together to mourn the loss of our Rob. So I want to invite everyone to just take a moment, hold on to the person next to you, and let it out. It was in the middle of the day. It was 96 degrees. It was perfectly still. What was going on? I looked around, realized that the air conditioning unit on the opposite wall had just switched on. I went to said unit, and I double and triple checked what the hell was happening. And the timer function was off. In fact, my parents hadn't been there for several days, and I had been the one who had turned it off prior to leaving their place. There was absolutely no reason for that AC to come on. Rob, not long ago, had used the term green lights, which I understood to be little signs from the world around you that everything is just right. And as I sat back down to enjoy my little cool off, I felt this incredible wave of relief passing over me. It was all right. This was his green light for me. There were other similar experiences in those first weeks after Rob passed, but what a gift that particular moment was. Because each day now, whenever the breeze picks up or a gust of wind blows by, I get to feel the presence of my brother Rob with me. Thank you all again very much for your presence here today. It means the world to me. It means the world to all of us. And it certainly would to our Rob. So we're going to pass on the flame. Amy's going to come up. But I want to encourage everybody to keep an eye on these candles up here, because a sign, Rob would not pass up 2 of his favorite activities: playing with fire and fucking around with people.
He's messing with me
There he
already.
is, messing with us already.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. All right. Okay. I wrote this letter for our son Knox, who isn't here today, but one day when he's ready, I will share it with him. But today, I'm sharing it with all of you, Rob's family, closest friends, and community that he loved so much. My dear sweet Knox, In the 11 years that I knew your dad, I was fortunate enough to share an amazing life with him. A life made not just in celebrations and big events, but in the little moments that often go unnoticed. The calls to check in, the goodnight kisses, the routines that hold two people together in partnership. Most of these moments were filled with joy, laughter, and adventure, while others were painful and heartbreaking. But it's these moments that held us together and that created our family. And of these moments, the most meaningful and life-changing was when you were born. Knox, when you came into our lives, you changed everything in an instant. Never before had your dad or I, felt such deep love and purpose. You brought meaning to our lives in a way that we could never have imagined. And you were and always will be our most precious gift. Your dad loved you so much. The joy and pride he had for you in watching you grow and learn and explore. Wonderful experiences to witness. Nothing made his heart swell more than seeing your eyes light up when he was sharing one of his passions with you, be it swimming, painting, woodworking, or early morning Jeep rides to the fishing pier. And it's these memories that we will always have and share as you grow up and get to know the amazing man your father was. When you were just a few months old, just learning how to smile, I would sit with you for what seemed like hours, smiling at you, hoping that you would give me a smile in return. But you had other plans, most Rob-like smile. And when I looked to your face, your eyes were locked on his, and you had the biggest toothless smile a baby could have. You were so enamored with your dad's love and attention, and the two of you were so happy in that moment. And moments like this filled our lives together over the last 6 years. Your dad loved nothing more than to spend time with you, pouring his attention and affection into you, which filled both of you with a knowing of the deep care the two of you shared. Over the years, the projects you and your dad created were some of the greatest experiences of his life. He loved nothing more than to teach you how to use a power tool and then watch as you brought an idea to life, all while listening to and learning from the lessons he was teaching you. And I will always remember the excitement on your face when you would bring in a completed work, and your dad standing proud and smiling, filled with the joy of sharing his skills and passions with you. I know you will carry his generosity and support with you, enlivened by the time and gifts your dad taught you. He gave you a strong foundation, one that you can build upon, and you will always be able to feel his presence and love, especially when you need him the most. In trying to find the words to help guide you along what is now a new and different journey in your life, I came across a poem by Maya Angelou. The last verse speaks to how your dad has forever enriched your life in ways that will continue to grow and blossom over time. It says, "And when great souls die, after a period of peace blooms, slowly and always irregularly, spaces fill with a kind of soothing electric vibration. Our senses restored, never to be the same, whisper to us, they existed, we can be and be better, for they existed." Sweetheart, your dad's love has helped shape you into the person you are and will be. He will always be with you, winking to you throughout your life. And I will always be here to talk with you, answer your questions, share stories, and explore memories so that you truly know your dad. Not only the aspects of his character that made him uniquely special, but also how much love, pride, and adoration he had for you. I know that his love lives on not only in the community and family he leaves behind, but in you. He loves you, and I know we will love, adore, and him forever. Forever and always. Mom. You messed with me already.
Gotcha.
Mine's still lit. He likes me more. Of all the people. Of all the people. I'm not going to say it, but it's pretty obvious.
We've been wanting that for a long time.
Good try. All right. I guess we'll just jump back into it real quick. Not a great way to start, but I just wanted to start with a little short background of how I met Rob and we knew we were going to be good friends for a long time. Taylor actually introduced us. I believe we were in 7th grade, and he came up one day and said, "John, you've got to meet this guy. You have to meet this guy." I was like, "All right." So he takes me over. He goes, "This is Rob Soper. His girlfriend's in 8th grade." Not good at that. So, in the story of when I knew we were going to be really good friends goes along with Nick and St. Peter's. We were in confirmation class together at St. Peter's in 8th grade. I knew we were going to be friends when we would team up against other people in Bible fights. So after that, I just knew he's the guy.
For those that don't know me, I'm Taylor Mason. I met Rob when we started at Ladue Middle School, and I'm proud to say that he's been my friend for 25 years. Rob was our guy. He was the all-American good dude, smart as a whip, and I can do it with my hands, man. He challenged everybody around him, whether he knew it or not, to be smarter, to work harder, and if nothing else, to just figure it out. He always just figured it out. That's how he operated. We never really did figure out if Rob went to Home Depot for his many home projects or for the hot dogs that he loved at the hot dog stand. We can all see, and we rode with him, and we can all see how that turns you into an avid DIYer for sure. We did everything with traveling together was so fun. Whether it was a trip to Cancun with our dorky bleach blonde hair, or the week of a lifetime in Maui, thank you, or a college spring break trip to Australia. We laughed a lot with each other, and we laughed at each other a lot together. From one bite cheeseburger challenges at McDonald's. I won. To Rob's two pizza sub club that he invented at Pickleman's. And then who can forget Rob's gourmet ribs? And in his words,
Rob was one of those guys who always kept people around him on their toes. Whether it was from making and shooting potato guns or putting fireworks where they didn't belong. He loved to push the limits, especially when it came to Chris's friends, like the time he shot one of them with a handful of jelly beans out of a water balloon launcher. He treated everyone he met as a close friend. If you talked to him once a week or once every few years, it was like you had talked to him yesterday. He was always so enthusiastic toward any conversation anyone wanted to have with him. There have been many stories since this tragedy happened about how Rob was working behind the scenes and helping people with either work, family, or relationships. He loved everyone, and he was a special person.
I was very lucky, and it was an honor to have Robbie as the officiant at my wedding. He was the obvious choice, a friend who valued love, togetherness, and above all else, just loved people and friendship. Rob was the kind of guy who was as genuine and as respectful as it gets. You knew if he liked you, and if you didn't know if he liked you, and if he didn't like you, you didn't know it. For instance, Rob would always remind me just how much I loved Hootie and the Blowfish. The song would come on and, "It's Hootie, T, it's Hootie." I've been listening to a ton of Hootie and the Blowfish the last month. He was thoughtful, caring, compassionate, and a sensitive soul. Man, what all of us would give for another one of those late night Rob heart to hearts.
Rob was a great father. Every time I talked to Rob, he always talked about what he and Knox were working on. Whether it was a fishing pole rack on his Jeep, a candy delivery system during Halloween, during COVID, swimming, skiing, he talked about anything and everything they did. Rob also treated Mary Margaret, my daughter, and all of his friends' kids as one of his own. Every time he would come into town, he would always open up his backpack and have a gift for Mary Margaret. Every time. Knox, you meant the world. You meant everything to your father. Always, and especially now, we love you, and we'll love you as we did your dad.
Knox, he loved you more than words could ever describe. You were the first thing on his mind each morning and the last thing on his mind each day. Your father was loved by so many, and he truly, truly loved so many. We will do our best to love you as much as he loved us. He has inspired us all to be better parents. Amy, we're here for you. We always will be. Or a call, a text, a plane ride. We want Rob to rest easy knowing that we're going to be there for you and Noxie. And to share who Robbie was with Knox. Cindy and Nat, Chris and Nick, thank you for sharing him with all of us. He brought a little bit of each of you to everything he did. I know that you all learned a lot from him, the least of which is how to love. He taught everybody how to love harder, and I think we can all take that away from such a great life that he lived. Remember that Robbie always led with love.
Rob lived his life the same way that he played the cross, with a smile on his face and running over every obstacle in his way. If you ever heard his laugh or saw his smile, it drew you to him. My best times with Bobby were when we would just sit around laughing on a Sunday, eating pot stickers, which he called something else, dumplings, drinking bourbon, and talking about life. The last time he was in town, he encouraged me to start a new career and follow a passion of mine. If anyone ever needs to talk or just hang out, I'll be ready. I don't promise I'll change your life like Rob did to mine, but I'll buy the pot stickers. Amy, Knox, Sopers, St. Louis is here if you ever need anything, and we'll all clear our schedules when you guys decide to visit.
Robbie, until we meet on the other side, rest easy, because it's going to be a party when we meet again. Just like you always used to say to us, and you would always say it first. Love you, brother.
By way of background, for those that don't know me, I'm Doug. The light in my life has gone out. Teddy Roosevelt wrote these words on Valentine's Day, 1884, after losing his wife and his mother on the same day, shortly after the birth of his first daughter. Like him, I'm sure many of you feel that a light in your life has gone out. Rob unquestionably brightened our lives, a shining example of how to live, love, teach, and care for those around you. In the years since Bucknell, I'm eternally grateful to have remained close enough by day, painting masterpieces by night, and winning the Bassmaster Classic on the weekend. A Renaissance dad raising a Renaissance son. Words like charismatic, rambunctious, goofy, spontaneous, and so many others. The characteristics that made Rob Rob and why we loved him. spontaneous, like coming home with a kitten, Mama, that poor, sweet cat who lived with us our senior year at Bucknell, in conditions that no loved pet should endure. No doubt the rest of us said we'd help raise her, but without a doubt it was Rob that cared for her. And later, of course, Nat and Cindy. Better late than never, but thank you. And I hope their gentle souls are reunited again. Words like empathetic, courageous, loyal, humble, and reliable. Rob's heart was immense, with room for us all. While some of us have a brotherly connection to Rob that is only fraternal, Rob's gift was to treat it as so much more. Bonds built through blood, sweat, and natural light-flavored tears, and that only strengthened over time as we reunited after Bucknell on both the East and West Coasts. When Rob and Amy left San Francisco all those years ago, I knew it was to chart their own course. But it marked a turning point for me as well. Had they stayed, I wonder if I too would have done the same and not moved to the UK 7 years ago. Rob's courage to chart his own path exemplified what it meant to live life in the arena, and whether achieving greatness or failing spectacularly, to do so while daring greatly. For that, I owe him immensely. After writing those words that I began with, Roosevelt, aged 25 at the time, would go on to become Assistant Secretary of the Navy, Colonel in the Army, Governor of New York, Vice President, and President, of course. I believe that we, too, must make the most of our time, our gifts, our light, and bring them to each other when it's needed, with Rob's light taking its place among our guiding stars. In that way, Rob's light will never go out, not for me, and his loss will drive me, but not determine me. Thank you for this opportunity, and to Rob, speaking now makes me feel as if I had lost at least one of my senses. Hear you or see you, and I wonder if you hear me. One thing is quite sure, I love you. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Sarah, and I am Amy's godmother. Though I am nervous, I am here because Robbie showed up for everyone he loved. From our first meeting about 11 years ago when Amy introduced us, I knew that Robbie was special. When he reached to shake my hand, his palm was sweaty, but his smile connected. And then he laughed. Robbie's laugh was like no other. I always told him, "You have the best laugh." From the start, I saw in Robbie this tremendous strength. He had it physically, but more importantly, he had the strength of character. His caring for others was always on display, guiding everything he did. For instance, when I was going through a challenging time in my life, Robbie wrote me a letter of encouragement and hope. Telling me not to give up, that he would be there for me. Thank you for seeing me, Robbie. Know that I saw you too. Robbie's ability to connect was rare. Somehow he made room for anyone in need. He could sense and see when you were down, needed a kind word or hug. He had the capacity to make anyone feel loved, special, and important. He was truly a gentleman. One winter when Rob and Amy were living in St. Louis, Robbie was out of town and it was snowing. Wanting to save Amy the hassle, he asked a couple of his buddies to go over and shovel the driveway to be sure Amy would be safe. Another winter, we were in Deer Valley. It had been years since I had been on skis, and I was practicing on the bunny hill, determined to make the end of the day run with Knoxy. Robbie texts me, "You've got this, Nana. You can do this." Another time in San Rafael, I was having dinner with Rob, Amy, and Knox. There was food in the house, of course, but nothing I could eat, and Robbie knew this. So he just hopped on his one-wheeler, went to the corner grocery store to get some chicken to barbecue. He loved to barbecue. I learned quickly that Robbie had a heart bigger than most. He opened his heart to Amy's family and friends, and I came to know that Robbie was filled with gratitude for his adoring, thoughtful, and devoted parents. He told me all the time he was who he was because of them. Everything was about family, family, family with Robbie. And then when Knoxy was born, Rob's whole world changed and the family shifted. Amy was now Mom, Cindy was Gamma, Nat was Bobo, Tom was Avo, brothers were always Uncle Nick and Uncle Kiss. Marsha was Tutu, which is Hawaiian for grandmother, and I was Nana. I saw the pure love that Robbie poured into these relationships. Robbie's center shift. I noticed him coming from a different place within himself, especially when it came to Knox, who was everything to Rob. Robbie was always looking for those teachable moments in the garden, in the garage, and in the car looking out the window on a road trip. I watched their little dinner table inventions, some starting out as fantasy, coming alive over the next few days, filled with contagious laughter. Woodworking, splash painting, backyard tent camping with real tents, fishing at McNair Pier in San Rafael, and even fly fishing in Utah. I witnessed his heart as it grew, as more of his vulnerability began to surface. As he faced the humanity we all share, confronting his own doubts and insecurities, I saw his vulnerability as it became the source of his strength. Especially over the past year and a half, I was there to see another shift in him. He realized that he needed to acknowledge his own needs. He had always been so focused on showing up for others that he really showed up for himself. For the first time, he was beginning to share the same tenderness and care for himself that he had always given to others. He was embracing his truth, even though there were times when Robbie did not think he was enough. But he never let fear or embarrassment get in the way. He was so open about his challenges and about learning new ways to work on them. For all the teaching he did with Knoxy, Robbie became a full-time student of his own life. I found myself encouraging him to look for the green lights, those signs in life that show the universe is speaking to you, validating the voice of truth that lives inside of you. He would text me whenever those green lights popped up for him. The last time was during a trip to St. Louis, when Rob and Amy were looking at schools for Knox. Rob had texted me a photo of a heart with this caption: "Water dropped from my wet, a beautiful human being in you. Your transparency is what marked you as a beautiful soul. You are good enough. In fact, you were and still are great. Inspiration of how I want to be as a friend. Your ability to be real, to be vulnerable, moved us all and will continue to do so. How you lived and how you loved is awe-inspiring. Family to me, and surely to the people gathered here today. May you forever find your green lights wherever your journey takes you. I know, Robbie, that we carry you always in our hearts." Oops.
Just pretend they're lit.
Yeah.
All right, you guys. All right. Well, I'm going to be singing a song that has a lot of what has been talked about today within it. It's about the importance of family, relations between people, brothers and sisters, fathers and mothers. And there's in the chorus, there's a line that you guys can join me on if you want.
Lyrics are in the program.
They're in the program. Well, take me home, back where the love is always free. Me home, where my family waits for me. Take me home to live this love eternally. Take me back into the bosom of the Lord. When I was young, I had to wander, make my mark upon this world. Though I looked, I never found a heart more tender than the one I found in you. And now I know just what I'm after. That's why I'm coming back for good. Well, I just had to try. I tried to. Now I'm coming home to you. Take me home, back where they live life naturally. Take me home. There's a place that's set for me. Take me home to live as one big family. Take me to the bosom of the Lord. Take me back into the bosom of the Lord. Now they know everyone's my brother. The smile of most men, but skin deep. They'll quickly leave you for another dream, another scheme. Steal your boots when you're asleep. And now I know the cost of flying close to the sun with waxed wings. Well, I just had to try. I almost touched the sky, and now I'm coming home to you. Take me home, back where the children can run free. Take me home, we all return eventually. Take me home, I always carried it in me. Take me back into the bosom of the Lord. Take me back into the bosom of the Lord. Take me back into the bosom of the Lord. Love you, Rob.
I didn't even try out the candle. It's not working. It's hard to imagine that the last time I addressed many of the people, the same people in attendance today, was almost exactly 9 years and 1 month ago, as Rob's best man at his wedding. God, he was so happy that night. Arguably the best night of his life. That was one hell of a celebration. Well, we're here for a much more somber occasion, certainly collectively to mourn and grieve the loss of a man who touched all of our lives profoundly. Let's not forget that we're also here to celebrate his short yet beautiful life. I think most of you know who I am, but I thought it'd be worthwhile to begin with an introduction. My name is Chris Soper, and I'm Robbie's younger brother. I grew up wrestling with Rob on the ground, with him opening up all of my birthday and Christmas presents, with us swimming in the summers and sledding in the winters. Towards the end of middle school and throughout the 2 years we overlapped in high school, we really became best friends. We became fairly inseparable. We played water polo and lacrosse together. I began sleeping on a couch in the basement right next to Rob's room so we could stay up far too late on school nights together. And he invited me to many of the parties and friends hangouts that he attended. Our closeness especially grew over the last couple of years because we were in close proximity to one another living in Northern California. When my wife, Julie, and I lived in San Francisco, we'd go to Rob's house just north of San Francisco all the time for long weekend sleepovers, which included swimming in the pool with Knox and Rob, grilling or smoking meats, movies on the projection screen in the backyard, and late nights drinking, playing darts, bubble hockey, and foosball, and talking. Then this past December, Julie and I bought a home less than 15 minutes away from his house, and Rob's and my relationship somehow managed to flourish even more. Needless to say, Rob and I were as close as two people could possibly be. Our relationship was something more than just best friends, more than brothers. In some respects, I feel as if we were soulmates. I've struggled so intensely trying to figure out how to navigate his death. One thing that I've found myself repeatedly coming back to is pondering the idea of how you cherish someone's memory, How does one do that? What does legacy mean, and how do you honor it? My dad has said that a person doesn't die when his physical body leaves this physical world, as long as his memory and legacy are kept alive and shared amongst the people who knew and loved that individual. A hybrid definition of legacy that I came up with is that legacy means something transmitted by or received from an ancestor or predecessor that continues to exist after death or its end. The concept of continuing to exist and our role in keeping Rob alive through sharing his memory and legacy is especially germane for me as I eagerly await the birth of my first child, a baby boy due June 27th, who will never have the opportunity to meet in person his dear uncle and my beloved brother. My son will only know Rob through the stories, memories, and the legacy of Rob that all of us here share with my son. So what is Rob's legacy? While preparing this speech, I reviewed every single Facebook message, Instagram message, email, text, letter, and voicemail I received in the aftermath of Rob's death from friends and family expressing their love for my brother. Many of the resounding themes of these messages help paint part of the picture of Rob's legacy, so I'd like to share some of those themes with all of you now. His laugh. It was described as contagious, funny, and would encourage those around him to join in laughter. He would have and encourage belly laughs and a flow, or as Luke Lionfrost explained, a laugh and chortle that made you smile. I wanted to just for Rob's laugh. His smile. So many people remarked that they will always remember Rob with a huge, welcoming smile on his face. What a beautiful thing. His bear hug, or as Mark Klein described it, Rob's Soper bear hug in fashion. His unusually large heart. Rob was selfless and always put others before himself. He was so loved by anyone who got to know him, and was also loved by many people who barely knew him. That's because his love for others was boundless. His uniqueness, the sentiment that he was one of a kind, was shared by many. His ability to bring laughter to all those around him, whether through cracking jokes or playing practical jokes on others, whoever was with Rob could expect a good laugh. His light. Many observed that Rob seemed to emanate light and that he was himself an incredible light in this world. Rob undoubtedly had the ability to light up a room. In addition to being the life of the party, he'd always make an effort to pull people aside and ask meaningful questions, often relating back to a conversation or event that happened months or even years prior. He showed genuine interest in everyone around him. Rob was always supportive of others, whether in their personal or professional lives, whether someone needed encouragement or a boost to get through tough times, or to acknowledge and applaud you when things were going well. Rob was always emotionally available and allowed himself to be vulnerable. Rob was game for anything and everything. He brought passion and gusto to everything he did, decorating the house for holidays, building potato gun launchers, creating laser tag courses in the basement, playing dress up in my grandparents' attic, and tinkering with anything in the constant adventure for and with Rob. Rob served as an inspiration and role model to so many people. So many of my friends exclaimed that they looked up to him as an older brother. Rob set an example for how to live. He simply made us better people. Rob's outsized presence as a role model for others was by far the most recognized as a father to Knox. Rob's love and devotion to Knox was his life's greatest and most important accomplishment. Rob taught Knox to splatter paint, to fish, to woodwork, to build, to swim, to play sports of all kinds. The list could go on indefinitely. Importantly, Rob taught Knox to be curious and how to find his passions in the pursuit of that curiosity. Most importantly, Rob taught Knox, through displaying it every single day, how to love unconditionally. I'd like to tell you about the unique experience and privilege of being Rob's younger brother. Rob loved me absolutely and fiercely. I have no doubt that he would have taken a bullet for me. He always made a point to tell me how proud he was of me. He wanted to show me off to the world, and he didn't blink an eye doing so. Whether indulging me in sleepovers when I was only 5 and he was 8, allowing me to sit shotgun in the Wrangler in high school when other older brothers would have been embarrassed, or when he announced ago, Julie and I had water issues on the downstairs hardwood floors, so I took lead on calling and coordinating with the handyman who tore out the floors, the concrete waterproofing company that sealed the underlying concrete, and the flooring company that installed the new floors. Rob told me that he understood the frustration and the work that goes into an endeavor like that, and to congratulate me on how well of a job I did. More than that, he wanted me to know how proud he. I will always champion Rob's legacy because so much of who I am is a direct result of him. Growing up, and even into adulthood, I have often told people that I'm a blend of my 2 older brothers. The 2 of them shaped me into the man I am today. Now one of them is gone, and that void will never be filled. But I can never change what's already made me who I am today, and that's composed of at least half of Rob. I will champion his legacy because he lives within me and will forever. Being Rob's brother was such a privilege. I remember the first time he showed up at Julie's in my new home after we moved in this past December. He was glowing in excitement. He showed up with a massive box of garland and lights to display on the outside of the home. He did so much to help make that house into our home. He helped me string cables across my backyard that were necessary to string market lights. He installed our Simply Safe camera on the doorbell with an active electric current at the time, no less. We hung large mirrors and pieces of art, and even installed a new electrical outlet in our laundry room. One day he showed up unannounced with a bag of power tools with multiple drills, a circular saw, and a power sander, just to give to me. He did all of this, spent all of this time, and gifted his own personal possessions because he loved Julie and me. He was so proud of us for moving into that home. He wanted to rejoice with us. I could count on him for anything, big and small. Whether advice in relationships, his help with fixing literally any. I looked up to and depended on Rob in every respect of my life. I still cannot fathom that I'm about to enter the most consequential chapter in my life, fatherhood, and I don't have Rob to lean on. And it just absolutely breaks my heart into the tiniest pieces to think that my son will never meet Rob. But what can we do? There's no going back. Rob has left this physical world. But I know he is with me and within me always. I know he'll be there looking over my shoulder every time I grill, cautioning me not to overcook those ribeyes. He'll be there telling me which drill bit to use. And he will most definitely be there the first time I put my son to my chest and tell my son how much I love him. I still have so much to learn from Rob. In his death, I vow to become more like him, to find and pursue my passions, to make the mundane extraordinary, to play practical jokes, to love deeply and widely, to laugh more, and to be generous to those people I love and to those people I don't even know. Just the other day, my dad said he wanted to be more like Robbie through smiling and laughing more. Dad, please do that. To everyone here or watching from home, I encourage you to do the same, to think of something you loved or admired about Rob, and make an effort to incorporate that part of him into your life. Keep Rob close to you, honor his memory, and keep him alive by adopting the Rob Soper bear-hugging fashion, or that laugh and chortle that makes others smile, or show a genuine interest in others by making concerted effort to ask a friend or acquaintance about a conversation or event that occurred months ago. Smile more. Tell people how proud of them you are. Embrace all of the beauty and wonder in this world. Take your child on an adventure, create an experiment with them, or teach them and learn for yourself how to splatter paint. Above all, love deeply, blindly, and unconditionally. Before I leave you all, I have one request. You'll notice that there are note cards in the back tables. Before you leave today, I'd like to ask each one of you to write down a thought or two about Rob. You could write down a note addressed to Rob, wishing him well in his journey, on his next journey in life, next phase of life. You could write about a memory or association you have with him. You could write about the way in which you want to incorporate more of Rob into your life. Or you can write whatever you like. Once you finish writing, place it on the cork boards that are over there. I encourage you to write your name on the card, but absolutely no pressure if you'd rather remain anonymous. Finally, I'll leave you with a poem that my dear Aunt Libby wrote in honor of Rob. It's fittingly titled, Our Rob. If you knew me and loved me as I loved you, do not live in this house of darkness, locked in bitter grief. If you knew and loved me, you will know I am not there. Why would I be? Open the door and walk into the light, into the life we shared, and you will feel me surround you like an embrace. I am in the warmth of the sun on the face of my son, in the smile of a stranger, the voice of a friend, the dance of a fish as it curves through the waves. I am there the next time you get a back-thumping bear hug or share a belly laugh. The next time you solve a puzzle with your clever fingers. I am with you as you are with me always. My hands have loved the things of this life. My mouth has tasted its joys. My body ignited in pleasure. And I have engaged in some wondrous and some foolish exploits, but done them wholly. So, delight in life as I have. Re-enter this world that made me and that I loved. And when you need me, take another's hand, reach out for a hug, laugh at a shared memory, give kindness to someone who needs it, and I will crowd close to your heart, curl up in your belly, and stay a while. And when you speak, let only truth pour out. When you laugh, laugh with abandon. When you eat, fill your mouth to bursting with flavor, and let the juices drip. And when you love, crack your heart open so wide that it never again can close. If you know and love me, do this for me, with me. Life awaits with its route. Join me.